Also getting some horrific images coming from Israeli television. A reporter in the kibbutz Kafr Azar said the Israeli commander who liberated it from Hamas, says they found the bodies of 40 babies, and some of them with their heads cut off. And that's horrible to even say.
Horrible pictures. We know that we are dealing with ISIS, with barbaric militants. We haven't expected the attack, and we haven't expected the brutality. You know, you can fight, but to come to a community, to drag kids from their homes, tie them, and burn them alive. That's what they did, those barbarics. That's something which is beyond imagination. Even ISIS didn't do it to children. What they did to our women that they dragged into Gaza. Those kind of barbaric behavior, it forces us to understand that we have to fight back. We have to win the war. And by the way, you mentioned the sirens. I'm not worried about the sirens. We can have hundreds of sirens. We're going to have to put our people in shelters, but we're going to go after Hamas. We're going to hunt them down. We're going to eradicate them. Because the pictures we saw, and by the way, it wasn't only the militants of Hamas. They were the ones who were the first to come into our communities. But after them, ordinary people came from Gaza into the communities and committed atrocities. You know, since the days of the Holocaust, we haven't seen such horrible pictures.
But I'm talking to some of the soldiers, and they say what they've witnessed as they've been walking through these different houses, these different communities. Babies, their heads cut off. That's what they said. Gunned down, families completely gunned down in their beds. You can see some of these soldiers right now comforting each other. Many of them reserves who jumped into action, leaving their own families behind as well, not knowing the sheer horror that they were about to come to. They say they've never experienced anything like this. This is nothing that anyone could have even imagined when you're walking through here. Baby cribs thrown to the side.
Trey, Charlie Hurt here. Amid all of your amazing reporting, one of the most haunting details was your description of these Hamas terrorists going house to house and finding families cowering in safe rooms. And if they couldn't break down the door to get to the families, they would just light the entire house on fire. Do you have any sense of how many people died that way? And is that a tactic that we've ever seen before?
So the majority of people were killed when these militants entered these communities along the border. This is a tactic that is unheard of in modern warfare, such an extremist way to slaughter innocent people. They beheaded soldiers. They dragged bodies through the streets of Gaza and then captured people to take into the tunnels underneath the Gaza Strip. A lot of this for the propaganda of the group to inflict that fear into the hearts and minds of the Israeli people. And they were able to do that. But what they didn't understand is that by doing that, they would mobilize an entire country against them.
Now, the situation in Gaza is much more complicated. It's almost like a crime scene. The longer Israel waits to be able to conduct those hostage rescues in Gaza, the longer the terrorists have to move around those hostages, which makes it more difficult for our Mossad and our Shin Bet security, our intelligence agencies, to find them. And I believe that you're going to see Israel dial things up and do what they do best, which is selective operations using disguise, using surprise, and using audacity and tenaciousness. And let me tell you, those assets, they're on par with Delta Force. They're on par with DevGru or SEAL Team 6. The Israelis are finely tuned machines when it comes to these operations.
Hamas, and I prefer calling them terrorists and not militants, but they've indicated that they will execute one hostage for every Israeli strike. Moving forward, I don't know, and maybe you do, how Israel will handle this. And there's also a second part of this. If there is a war in the Golan Heights, the northern border, where Lebanon is, do other countries then get involved? How is Israel in a position to defend herself, especially since I'm hearing that the Iron Dome is kind of it's kind of being stretched in terms of its strength because they're shooting missiles, some of which are duds that start to wear down the dome. So that there is this concerted effort again in this kind of coordinated militaristic way that they're handling this, where Israel is truly on the defensive.
Yeah, this is part of the issue, is that they're dealing with two separate fronts and two different groups of fighters. And already today, Hezbollah militants tried to cross into Israel and were engaged in a firefight with the Israelis. So there is an understanding that if this multi-front war erupts at the level that Israel believes it could drag the entire region into this fight. And when it comes to other countries' involvement, it's part of the reason the United States is moving an aircraft carrier closer to Israel. They want to send a message to Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and Hezbollah that Israel has support from its allies. And that's really a critical part of this story as things develop here in southern Israel.
We are willing to do whatever is necessary to fight back and to eradicate evil. We are fighting pure evil.